Welcome to another amazing adventure episode of For the Sake of Heaviness. I am Butch Ballage here as always with the awesome
Merciful Mike. He's pointing
Merciful
that way,
Mike.
but on my screen, I'm actually over here. So who knows where I'm going to show up? Anyway,
I can't tell because I got you on the one side and Nate below.
okay.
Our guest tonight, Mr. Nate Towle from
Yes.
Extermination Day, formerly from Satyrs. How you doing, brother?
Well, I'm breathing, so that's good. You know, any time above the dirt's a good day. So
Definitely. I used to
brother.
run into I worked in an office building. I don't know how many years ago this is now, but I used to run into this courier. And I think he was like a retired guy that was doing this as his sideline or whatever. And I'd see him all the time in the elevator. That was always his answer. I'm always like, how's it going? Every day above ground's a good one. So,
well, that's the quintessential Minnesotan. You know,
Yeah.
not give you too many details, but just oh yeah, well I'm here. You know.
yeah.
So,
Well, Nate, you got a lot going on, and you've got some new stuff that's on the in the near future horizon, however you want to say it. But we always like with a lot of our guests, we always like to just kind of get back to the basics in the beginning, and we love the evolution of how you got to where you are today. So now, Nate, you and I have known each other. Geez, I don't even remember when we first met, but it was back in the Wicked Inquisition days. And I know that I wanted to try to get you guys on a couple of shows, but it was so long ago. Everybody was still underage at the time, but we did manage one. I know that.
yeah.
So just do you still hang out with those guys at all? I mean, is there ever any talk of just getting together to jam, or anything, or show here and there?
Yeah, we talk to each other. I mean, I don't know if we'd ever get it back together. It'd have to be a really good offer, let's put it that way.
Sure.
And I don't really know if demand even exists for that sort of thing. But we still talk. I see the other guitarist Ben. I see him at shows and stuff, and so yeah, we're on good terms.
That's cool. That's cool. I always enjoyed the band. I thought you guys had a great sound. So, but let's jump ahead a little bit. And as Butch mentioned, you were with Satyrs for a little bit there. How did that all come about? For those that aren't real familiar with that story.
Well, what I used to do when I was a teenager and into my early 20s, I'd go to shows and I'd be that annoying guy that would give the band a copy of his album. Satyrs was on tour with Electric Wizard back in 15, and so I did my usual shtick, and they actually listened to the album. So from there, we kind of stayed in touch. Like, they were mega Pentagram fans, as am I. So we'd sit there and talk about the different lineups and the different we were just obsessed with Pentagram, and actually, because I know you were at this show, but when Pentagram played in Chicago later that year, Satyrs was opening.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to that show and talked with them some more, and then they went off and they did a couple weeks with like Cadaver and the Shrine.
Okay.
And got back from that, and Wicked had just broken up, and they said, well, do you want to, the songs we've been writing, it kind of seems more conducive to two guitars. Do you want to give it a go? So flew out there, jammed with them, and joined.
That's awesome. They were out on, correct me if I'm wrong, but they were North Carolina, out on the east side.
They were originally from Herndon, Virginia, which is
okay.
outside of DC. And then we ended up spending a lot of time in Richmond, actually.
Okay, I gotcha. Because you went on some pretty lengthy runs with those guys and had some pretty sizable shows. What sticks out in your head is like the big moment, or however you want to put it.
Well, the last tour that I ever did with them was really good. The drummer at the time had left the band, so my friend Jason Obrook hopped in on drums and played on that tour. And for me, it was probably the best just because I got to play with my best friend. And the band was just probably, in terms of musical prowess, was at its peak. And that's not to disparage any previous lineups. I mean, I think that really every iteration of that band had something interesting to offer. But for me personally, as far as just being with my best buddy and playing with a bunch of guys that really just gelled together really well and came across live really well, that it was the last tour I did with them, but it was a good way to end things for sure.
Sure, definitely. Still talk to those guys a little bit off and on?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. That's cool. Butch, go ahead and jump in when you want here, man. I know you and I like to jump all over each other, so whatever.
I actually want to let's roll back even further. Like what started you down this musical journey? I always like to. It's always fun to hear, like, kind of like, I don't know about you. I love to read like music biographies and stuff, and so there's always like it's always interesting to see where someone started at the beginning. Like, did you have a musical household, or like what led you into taking up guitar and getting involved in music?
Well, when I was really, I have this thing called synesthesia, and my mind's eye, basically, if I hear specific notes, for whatever reason, I relate them to colors.
Oh, okay.
I used to go over to my grandma's house and tool around on her piano and just chicken pick melodies, or, chicken pluck melodies. And then eventually I started playing the clarinet. Really, with the guitar, it was my older brother. He was playing guitar. So I'd sneak into his room and pick up his guitar and start playing. And then I was listening to like Alice Cooper Band and Creedence Clearwater Revival. Then I got turned on to Sabbath. And when I was about 13 or 14, like YouTube had just kind of started out. And I distinctly remember I was listening to Sabbath tunes on YouTube, and in the related videos, it says, St. Vitus, Palm Springs Community Center, 1986. And I'm like, what the hell is this? Because St. Vitus Dance, the song by Sabbath, right? So I click on that, and I'm watching that, and I'm like, oh, there's a whole... And then in the related videos, like Pentagram and Trouble start popping up. And so it's like all these bands that I feel like at any other point in history, I would have had to have been involved in like tape trading circles or something. It was kind of afforded the ability to be turned on to these bands just through YouTube. Like that was a huge thing, And then from there, like I remember Bobby Liebling used to talk about all the bands he liked, so he'd be like, oh, I love the, Sir Lord Baltimore and Captain Beyond and Blue Cheers. So then I'd go onto YouTube and start looking those bands up and become fans of them, So I was in a really unique spot to find those bands and kind of like just sort of have this instant access to them, It was really kind of the beginning of that, I guess. So that's kind of where it got the ball rolling. And then I just was like, I want to do this doom metal thing. Like this is cool. This is what I want to do. And so when I formed Wicked, like that was the first band I ever formed. And it was like from day one, it was just like, we're going to be like Trouble, Vitus, Pentagram, Blood Farmers, Obsessed, like that was the goal pretty much. So at Witchfinder General. So yeah.
Did you guys start out playing how long did it take you to get into like to where you said, you know what, we're going to do our own thing, and instead of like being a cover band or whatever? Was it like the goal right away? It was like, we're going to write our own stuff?
I think we spent a year like playing Pentagram, Witchfinder General, Vitus, and Sabbath tunes. Like we spent a year doing that, and then I was kind of the de facto band leader, so I'd be teaching everybody how to play these songs, and then probably after about a year, I started um, giving a crack at writing songs.
Nate, were
Nice.
these were the guys in Wicked? I mean, did you go to school with them? Were they like longtime friends, or did you kind of how did you find each other? Because I know, I mean, especially nowadays too, I guess it's kind of hard sometimes to find like-minded musicians that like the same stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, at that age and that time that, it all kind of opened up for you, how were you lucky enough to find three other guys that were like, yeah, we like this stuff too?
Well, initially, some of the earlier players, it was just you go to high school and you run into a kid that can play four chords on the guitar, and it's like, okay, good enough.
You're in.
Yeah.
Sit the kid down and show him how to play a riff or whatever. And then when I was about 16 years old, I transitioned over to an arts high school, and half the day was academic, and then the other half was music studies. So I was afforded the opportunity to meet other musicians,
Nice.
and who they weren't necessarily listening to those bands at that point, but they could play their instruments and had a little bit more of a knowledge of how to approach things. So I got pretty lucky in that regard.
Yeah, that doesn't happen too often. So then basically you opened their eyes up to Sabbath and Vitus and everybody that was involved.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we were gigging locally and stuff, I mean, there was certainly no bands here that sounded like us. I mean, not we weren't doing anything original by any means. I think it was a competent tribute, but it wasn't. It wasn't in. People were playing thrash and death metal. That was like the bar-fi band thing here. If you were playing metal, so we definitely, in terms of relative to what was going on, we were doing something kind of our own, I guess you could say.
Awesome.
Nate, I was going to ask, related to that, or just to jump on that, Minnesota is is known over the years for having a healthy music scene. I've never been out there myself, but you got Prince and Soul Asylum and
The
um,
Replacements.
the Replacements, like bands like that. Like, how is the scene for heavy music in Minnesota, and what was it like when you started putting yourself out there? Like, how is it for original bands? It seems to depend from place to place how things are for bands playing their own music, and then especially like even within certain states, whether you're in a sit playing in a city or playing in the suburbs, there can often be a big difference in what people want to hear in terms of like cover versus how receptive they are to a band just doing their own thing. Like, how was it for you guys from the get-go? How is it now, as a matter of fact?
Well, we definitely stuck out like a sore thumb. There weren't. Now there were people that were cool. I'm not gonna, there were people that were cool to us and dug what we were doing, but like we were really kind of the only guys doing it, and we were so young that we had people that were 8 to 10 years older than us, and when you're playing a show and leaving early because you got to wake up for high school the next morning, you're not exactly smoking cigarettes and drinking beers with the boys.
Yeah.
So I think at a certain point we kind of wouldn't say we grew disdain towards it, but we definitely felt like we were spinning our wheels here.
Mhm.
There wasn't a whole lot of you know, like all the opening slots we did for bigger bands were pretty much in other states for the most part.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Like now, I mean, having gotten back into it, it's kind of like the way things are here is like either you play loud music or you don't. And it kind of feels like people a little bit more open-minded to just different stuff, you know?
Mhm.
When I was a kid, it seemed more like, okay, this is a thrash show, you know, or this is a death metal show. And now it's kind of like the punkers and metalers are rubbing shoulders a lot more. And, you know, you can't really afford to be picky these days. And which I think is kind of for the best. I think you should be playing with as many different styles as you can and trying to absorb as much as you can. So now it actually feels a little bit more open and kind of accepting of different stuff. Whereas maybe at one point it wasn't as much. But again, 16, 17-year-old kid, I'm 31 now. Degree of relatability, a little bit different now that I'm an adult.
You bring up a
Yeah.
good point though, Nate, because primarily I did bookings when it was all, doom or stoner, but within that realm, those types of bands had like zero problem, having a thrash band or a death metal band on the bill with them. They were open to all of that, which amazed me. Because then later on, in bookings, if I was booking like a thrash metal band headliner, that's all they wanted on the whole thing, because they thought that's, we're going to bring in the whole crowd because it's all thrash. They were like, we do not want doom or anything like that. So there was that weird balance between, I don't want to necessarily say, scenes, but doom has always seemed a lot more open and encompassing. They'll take anybody. They don't care. It's all for the love of the music anyway. So that's a really good point.
Yeah, well, when there aren't too many kindred spirits, you kind of have to take what you can get too, you know.
It's true. Yeah,
So,
that's incredibly true.
Yeah,
yeah.
I feel like too that people don't give other people enough credit for being as uh diverse in their listening as, if I go out to a show, I'm generally wearing the the usual uniform, black t-shirt, black or blue jeans, and my docs and this and that, like, any self-respecting metalhead, so to speak. Um but like I listen to all kind of stuff. Like I'm all over the map from like age 18 up, especially I really started to blossom. And I've always thought it was fun playing and, being in doom bands. I remember in the Penance days, there was a band we played with locally in Pittsburgh a couple times. It was kind of like almost like cocktail jazz or something like that, like mixed with pop or something. And it's like, what I guess to make a long point out of a short point, the point is, like, people in the crowd, people that are really into music tend to be a lot more open-minded than people give them credit for. So it's like you're peeling people off anytime you play with a thrash band or a pop band or a funk band or something. There's always someone that is into more than just that one thing. So there's that appeal of playing with a broader base bill, I think works out for everyone, really, because first of all, you're drawing different people and you're not just pulling from the same scene. You might have a metal scene in a town that has, like, say the core 50 or whatever that come out. Who else are you drawing? If it's all metal bands,
Yeah.
you're pulling from the same crowd. But if you, like, have a grunge band or a punk band or, whatever, pop band, maybe you pull like more people. I don't know.
Well, and I mean, I always think, I look back at like flyers in the 70s where it's like, oh, you got Rare Earth, Black Oak, Arkansas, Black Sabbath, and it's just like, to these people, it's just rock and roll, like it's just music, and you just showed up and did it. Like you dug whatever was going on, and once you start getting into the 80s and stuff, and I think like subgenres are important to some extent because they help us describe certain sounds, right? But I think in some ways that sort of hyperfixation on subgenres created divisions that didn't really need to exist. I've always been more of the mentality of some of the best bands uh, grabbed from as many different sources as they could, wasn't
Mm-hmm.
because when you're a kid, you start a band, when I'm 14, I go, I'm going to start a doom metal band, it's like, yeah, you're a kid and you're just, you know, you're starting out and you're emulating your heroes, right? But, as I've gotten older and played in different bands and stuff, it's like, I've seen the value in at least trying to, you know, it seems like everything's been done, but it kind of hasn't in a way. Like you can still kind of think outside the box, and hopefully come up with something that at the very least, like the puzzle pieces are arranged a little bit differently.
Yeah,
Without
I
a
think,
doubt.
yeah, for sure. When you're pouring your personality into something, you might be playing like something big. You might have grown up listening to Sabbath and Budgie. We talked about that earlier. We all have to point out that that's a great shirt. Before we got on, before Mike started recording, I had to point that out. Like that's the coolest shirt. Love them. Um, but you're pulling from your set of influences, but you're filtering it through your own personality. So while the prevailing thought you see all the time is, well, everything's been done, that can be done, but it's in the writing and it's in the filtering through your experience kind of thing where there's still bands that have it's still you, it still sounds like you, it doesn't sound like yeah, there are some bands that you listen to them, you're like, well, it's nothing more than that's just Maiden or that's just Sabbath. But
Yeah.
if you're doing things in a way true to yourself, then you're pouring yourself into it. And I think that's where, to your point, that that's where you come up with stuff that is truly unique, because it's unique to who you are and to your group, the chemistry that you develop um with a group of people in a band.
To your
Well, and then
point too.
this is a little bit of a pontification on my part, but if we talk about the term doom metal and we go back to like the OGs, right, and we take Saint Vitus and Trouble, for example, while Trouble has the twin guitar, harmonized leads, kind of Judas Priest going, and Saint Vitus, Chandler's doing like Lee Stevens' Blue Cheer meets punk.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, they both kind of have these slower moments that hit these tritonal notes like Sabbath, but like, do they really sound super similar? I don't know. And the beauty of those two bands is when they started, they just set out to be good rock and roll bands. They didn't say we're going to be a doom band. They just said, well, this is the stuff that we like and this is how we want to play. Which I don't know if people really take that into consideration or think about that as much, but that's why when we talk about AC/DC or Van Halen or Maiden or any of the giants, it's like they're these bands that are kind of their own genre. They've created their own thing, To me, that's the ultimate.
Yeah, I agree with you. To be able to, put your own spin on it to where it's unique enough to call it your own, and other people will recognize that too. And I think too, kind of what you said too, Butch, and building on what you were saying, Nate. I think more now than ever, the amount of genuine emotion and the storytelling element that goes into your music, I feel that's even more important now than ever to really make your own genuine mark. There's a lot, and I'm not putting anybody down either. Anybody out there doing it gets my respect, but there is a lot of color by number cookie cutter stuff, and if that's a starting point, then that's completely fine. It's where you take it from there. And there's been a lot of bands that I'm guilty of, a little gatekeeping here and there, or I'll be like, oh, that sucks, but then you follow them through the evolution, a couple albums, and what they turn into, you're like, it's mind-boggling and blown away. And I take that to heart in a big way, and that's what stays with you, and that's what gives your music the longevity.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't, when I was 14 years old and trying to get my sea legs, I think I'd be comfortable setting out to do something a little bit more contrived. But at my age and where I've come, I don't want to get I don't want to get a group of guys together and say we're going to start a Dungeons and Dragons band or something. Like,
Yeah.
Sure.
nothing against writing about that stuff. You can write about whatever you want. It's not a dig at that specific topic, but it's more so
Right.
just like, I don't like the idea of getting a group of guys together and saying, oh, we're going to do an Entombed worship band or something.
Right,
It
right.
doesn't feel to me.
No, I agree with that sentiment big time. So let's kind of cruise along with your evolution a little bit more. In between your exit from Satyrs and before Extermination Day really started rolling, I don't know if a whole lot of people know this between you and me, Nate, but I know that there was some talk of you hanging out and playing with the Skull there for a little bit too, because they've had a little bit of a second guitar revolving door going. So I don't know if you want to touch on that just for the trivia aspect of it all.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, through you, started talking to Wagner, and I could, I mean, I'm not going to be humble I can play most of Trouble's shit, like
Sure.
I can, big influence on my guitar playing. So yeah, I mean, I was talking to Wagner and Ron, and
Sure.
that would have been cool. Would have been a lot of fun.
Yeah,
But
I know
then,
the
of course,
planets didn't line up, as much as we wanted them to, but that was
well, then the
that was pretty
COVID thing
cool.
happened. Yeah, I mean, the COVID thing happened and just
Yeah.
nuked it.
Sidelined
But
everything. Sure. So actually, then had Extermination Day been an idea for you before you departed Satyrs, or did that come after the fact? And of course, everybody had downtime during the pandemic. So how did that come about?
well, I wouldn't say it was a rough idea in the sense that Wicked was we were evolving more into wanting to integrate more punk influence into what we were doing, which we kind of did have anyway. I always felt like we were more of a punk band than a metal band in some regards. So I'd always kind of wanted to move in that direction personally as far back as then. And then the Satyrs thing came up, and when you're joining an established band, you're kind of beholden to their creative, what they want to do. So my songwriting got sidelined for a couple of years there, but then after that ended and I kind of came back to this, it was kind of like, okay, well, I'm going to pick up off where I was, which was wanting to do this punk doom metal thing. Like that's kind of what I've always been wanting to do. And so, that's kind of been, I guess, where we're at now,
Right. We can kind of circle back on this. I don't want to get too far ahead of it because I want to talk about, everything else that you've done with Extermination Day. But as I, listened and kind of reacquainted myself with it, and of course, that's where it all started right there. But as I went through and I listened, from that demo, up to everything else that you've done, would you agree? I mean, I don't know if this is conscious or not, or just my interpretation, but it sounded like you started obviously with a lot more of the doom side of it and infused the punk, and now it seems like it's a lot heavier on the punk side with a little doom infused into it. So was that a cycle that you aimed for, or was that just a natural progression?
Yeah, I would definitely say because the first album we did, it was really more of a studio project.
Okay.
And that was kind of like, I want to do a 70s punk doom metal album. Like, I wanted it to be like if Trouble was at CBGB's or something, And so I was listening to a lot of like The Damned and The Saints and and Ramones and stuff like that. And so then from that point, the punk thing just kept going. I just kept listening to more punk bands. And so that was, I guess it was more of the natural progression, right? Just
Sure.
being turned on to other bands and sort of integrating it into what you're doing,
Right. Well, it's a seamless progression from my point of view. When I listen to it, it seems like it really took its natural course for the better. It sounds really good. So
Thanks.
you started off, it was a one-man band, and then you mentioned Jason Oberek earlier. Is he still in the fold, or because I know you're up to a 4-piece now, you're a full band. How, just kind of talk us through that.
Well, he's not in it anymore. I mean, he's kind of he's a lifelong brother. I mean, he's a member that's not a member, but what happened with him was, during COVID and stuff, after recording the demo, I said, hey, I got these songs. You want to record these songs? He said, sure. And then we recorded an EP. And then I said, well, I got an album's worth. You want to do an album together? And he said, sure. So we recorded the album, and then we'd gotten a version of the band together that was myself, him, the other current guitar player, and then actually my brother on bass.
Nice.
We've been rehearsing for a couple months, and then Jason actually got cancer.
Oh,
so yeah, so pretty much tabled that version of the band. And so while he was getting cancer treatment, I was writing the music for this upcoming album. So when the time came to, he got through treatment and he's cured.
Thank God.
Coming out on the other end of that, he plays in a band called Suffering Hour with the other guitar player, and he just wanted to focus on one band, just coming out of the end of cancer and stuff, and just kind of a reevaluation of goals and stuff. But
it's understandable, sure.
But we got this guy named Evan Blazing, who's just a monster drummer. We got this guy named Ryan Jansen, excellent bass player. Josh Rockin still on additional guitar. And once that lineup came together in 24, we finally started to get out and play shows, because I started this thing in 20. So it took us a little bit to actually get out there and do stuff, but we got to it, and we got this version of the band, which is, this is a band. It's not a studio project, and everybody's been able to add their piece to the album and the overall sound of the band and the attitude and everything. So it definitely feels a little bit more cohesive this time around, for sure.
What's your what's the way you guys write? Are you bringing the material into practice and then everyone gives their input, or do you guys just jam and see what comes out, or do each of you bring riffs in and then you cobble them together, or what's your process for putting music together?
Well, for this upcoming album, the vast majority of the arrangements and riffs were written by me. So I'll go into my bass, so I'll come up with riffs and ideas, and then I'll track drums, and I'll layer everything. I'll basically come up with demos, And then when we're rehearsing for the album, I'd go, okay, here's this set of, I had like 18 songs written or something. And so we'd pick the best ones, and then we'd start jamming them together. And then as we're kind of playing them, the bass player would go, oh, I came up with this idea, and so we'd add that, or the drummer would come up with something, or other guitar player would come up with something. So it's like I'd be coming up with the meat and potatoes of most of the stuff. And then as we're kind of working out as a band, we're kind of bringing it to the finish line. There was one song on the album where the other guitar player had written like 90% of the song, and then I was basically the editor. I went in and took his riffs and kind of arranged it, which is kind of something we're hoping to do a little bit more, because that actually turned out really well. But most of it was just me kind of coming up with the foundation of it, and then everybody kind of fleshing it out together, you know.
You're still the lead singer, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And it's going to stay that way, I assume, too, because you've got a real good, rough, gravelly voice and delivery that goes really well with the material.
Oh, thanks, man.
You bet.
Yeah, I mean, the other guys have been doing some backup vocals, some gang vocal type stuff live. So, you know, I plan on continuing to sing, but if if something comes along where there's a song and somebody else's voice just matches, you know, I'm open-minded. I'm willing to try anything, you know. I don't really, it's all a part of the process. It's all part of the fun, you know.
Sure. Are we allowed to mention the label? Can we name the label, or is that some? Okay, because you're signed with Argonauta Records.
Yep.
Great label. We've got some friends more in the light also work with those guys too.
So, yeah.
Yep. Good stuff to
Molasses,
say about them.
We did a couple records with them on Molasses Barge too.
Oh, that's right.
Oh,
yeah.
nice.
Or we did one of our records was with them. Yeah. So yeah, Giro's a good dude.
You're in good hands, definitely. Yeah. Good stuff to say.
Yeah. Well, what I was really happy about was, through the process of trying to get labels interested, a lot of underground labels tend to be we do this style, you know.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I get it. It's a business. You want to make a return on investment, keep the lights on. But Argonauta was just kind of like, hey, there might be something to what you guys are doing. Let's give it a shot, you know.
That's cool.
And that to me is really cool. For a label to it doesn't seem like that happens as often. You know, it's kind of like in order to get on a label these days, you really kind of have to build a grassroots thing before they go, okay, there's something to this. So it seemed like Argonauta was just like open-minded and excited about it. And that's really all you could ask for, you know?
Yeah, no, that's a good sign. I wanted to ask you also too, all three of us have a mutual friend with Tad Lager. He created our logo for the show. And I know that I don't know if he did artwork for you or if it was more layout stuff, but do you plan on working with Tad again?
Yeah, he just finished up our cover. I pretty much had most of the concept for the cover. Like it's a photograph of an image. But he went in and we worked together to edit it. So I've been working with him since the demo.
Great.
And he does a great job.
Yeah. Tad's a good guy. Yeah, he does really, really good work. He was when Butch and I decided we were going to do the show, he was like one of the first ones that came to mind. We're like, hey, let's see if Tad can come up with something cool. So he did. So
he definitely did, yeah.
So yeah, speaking of the live stuff, I know that I've seen some fairly recent videos of you guys out there. So are you kind of waiting for the release of the new album to see if, there's a better reason to get out on the road, or is anything like that starting to form, or are you just kind of waiting to see how the album is received first?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, when I was a kid and stuff, we toured a lot and we did a lot of DIY stuff, and the vast majority of shows we just did were blow up. I mean, it's really hard in the Midwest to build something organic, and especially what we were doing at the time. And now, with this band, we'll go out and play, but, we want to get paid. I mean, it's not that it's all about money, but, if you're asking us to drive X amount of distance, we've all been around the block long enough to know our value. And
sure.
So we're strategic about our shows, and we want to make them count. And we've been pretty good about that. But if, we are open to touring and doing longer things, but, it has to be the right thing. We're not just going to get into a van and book a bunch of DIY, because I've already done that. I've slept in the Walmart parking lots.
Yeah.
I've been there, and it's cool when you're 20, but you got to be smart about it. It's a business, and you can't be going out there and just hemorrhaging just to say you did it.
Yeah. No, I agree with you too. And I mean, as years go on, finances don't stretch like they used to. So,
Right.
but like you said too, and that's a really good point too, is your worth. It's okay when you're a young kid and you can sleep on bathroom floors for, days on end, but you get a little older and things like that kind of wear on you and grind on you a little bit more. So, yeah. It sounds like you guys have got a really good strategy going though.
Yeah, it's worked out so far, and if we get this album out and people start, hopefully people will listen to it. It's tough because you got a lot of stuff to pick from now.
Sure.
But yeah, if it gets out there and people dig it and they want to see us, we'll go play. We'll play wherever, man.
Awesome.
But under the right circumstances.
We need an actual couch this time around.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, Butch, anything else you want to say before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I did just want to ask. I'm always interested in songwriting process, and as a fellow vocalist and lyricist, I'm always interested in what your when there's two parts to the question. One is what's your what is your inspiration, like in terms of what you like to write about, or what inspires you to write, and then the second part of it is how do you go about doing it. There's different people have it's always interesting to me, and I always ask because there's so many different ways that people go about it. I know of people that I remember reading years ago, like guys like Jeff Tate would carry little micro tape recorders back in the day when they had those like on them, and that if they'd get into a conversation with someone or they'd come up with something, they'd immediately record it, where some people just like to let it rip in stream of consciousness what comes into their head at rehearsal. They go in terms of melody. And so I guess I'm just interested in your process, like how you build. Do you build from the melody up and out and then put the lyrics in, or do you have an idea ahead of time, or that kind of thing? Like, what's your...
Well, I've always written about my life observations. I've never really been one for occult or fantasy. Nothing wrong with writing about that stuff, and I listen to bands that do. I just wasn't really anything I wrote about. So, like if I'm gravitating towards things that I'm experiencing, and having it be a representation of who I am and what I experience, like on this latest record, a lot of the stuff was inspired by like Discharge and De Krotzen and Husker Du, and like the Blind album by COC especially.
Mm-hmm.
And I write about things, and sometimes they end up being political, but I don't really consider us a political band in the sense that I'm just writing about how I feel about things, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
so it's not like an
totally.
activist band per se.
Sure.
But then if the mission is kind of being true to myself and writing about myself and my experiences, if I'm coming up with an idea of a song and the iron's hitting hot and I recorded the drum tracks and I got the guitars down, I just sort of in the moment start spitting stuff out, and then I sit down and hit the record button and lay down some vocals. It's very much like in the moment, and I'm trying to capture this urgency and sense of, and then I'll go back and listen to the demo, and sometimes I'll go, this lyric needs to be changed or something. But a lot of how I work is very just spontaneous, which kind of goes into the whole punk ethos. It's that lightning bottle energy. It's like, it's what I appreciated about like Blue Cheer, the Stooges. Just having something just in the moment just explode. So that's how I approach most of my writing. It's not too, there's not a ton of premeditation. Sometimes, like you were saying with the, I'll hear a word that I'll think is interesting. I go, oh, what does that word mean? And where can I take this word? Put it into the context of what I've been thinking about, that kind of stuff. But spontaneity is mostly the key to what I do. By the seat of my pants.
Awesome.
Seems to be working. All right, Nate, we usually try to end on something goofy, or at least I do. So I'm going to ask you just a off the cuff, goofy ass question. Okay. Extermination Day is going to hit the road, but you get to choose 2 bands to tour with. Who's it going to be? And they can be anybody, any genre, whatever. You can get as nuts as you want, but however you see it.
I think Ammo and the Sniffers would be sick. And this band called Maggot Heart. Those 2.
Okay. Maggot Heart. You want to expand on that a little bit? Because that's new for me.
Yeah, they got the drummer from In Solitude, if you remember those guys.
Yeah, definitely, dude.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I'll have to look into that.
Leanna, the guitarist and singer, is just... She played in that band, The Oath, if you remember them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Definitely.
And Maggot Heart...
They got some profile people in there. Okay.
Yeah. And Maggot Heart is super good. It's like if Voivod was a rock band or something. Dissident, weird, goofy, but cool. Really cool.
Yeah, I'm glad I asked because I'm always on. Well, Butch and I always say this. We're constantly on the search for that something cool and new. So
yeah,
that'll be. I'll be hitting YouTube as soon as we wrap up here, looking up that one.
I definitely got to check that out because when In Solitude broke up, I was really bummed about that because I like the first 2 records a lot, but
great.
I loved what they did with Sister. Like, I'm like, okay, here's a band that we were kind of touching on this earlier about bands starting out and then the arc of their, where they go with, they start here, like where they're kind of like just Apin Maiden and Merciful Fate. And then, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Like the first record is killer, but they end up on Sister doing this record that is like totally different from what they did. And I felt like they really found like their own vibe, and then they fucking blew it up. And that was it. I mean, and Hendrik has done a few solo records. And so now I'm really interested in hearing this. I think that'll be really cool to check out.
Yeah, Maggot Heart is definitely one of the most unique rock and roll bands I've heard in a long time, through and through. So yeah, Ammo and the Sniffers and Maggot Heart, man, get us out on the road with them. We do that.
Yeah, Ammo and the Sniffers are cool, man. They my daughter kind of turned me on to them. I'd seen the name, but my daughter, she's like 20. I can't believe she's 22. 23. She's gonna be 23. I hope she doesn't watch this.
Well,
anyway, she kind of was asking me about them, and I checked them out, and they're a cool band. I really like her voice a lot. She's super, I don't know if sassy is the right word, but she's got a ton of attitude and stuff. You can just hear it coming through in her voice, and that would be a totally cool. I could totally see you guys playing with them. That'd be a fun show to see. A lot of energy.
Their guitar player Declan uses full stacks, so
nice.
None of this modeling amp stuff. I'm not crapping on it, but I kind of am. Full stacks.
Hey Nate, just
full stacks are nothing.
Real quick too, when is your album due out?
Oh, good question. Yeah.
Oh, sometime this year. We're still ironing out.
Narrowing it down a little bit.
Hopefully sooner than later. That's all I can. We just finished the master. We got the master done. So, we got a couple other ducks we got to get in the row. But yeah, I'd like to get it out as soon as possible because I think we're onto something. I hope so.
Nice.
We'll make sure that we put all the necessary links in the description so everybody can find you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And when the album comes out, man, come back on the show and we could talk about the record, and we talk about other stuff too. Like anytime you want to come on.
Yeah.
Oh hell yeah.
Yeah.
I would love to do that. Yeah.
Once you're on, man, you're on for life. You're a lifer now, Nate.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Yeah, I've been a fan of what you guys have been doing pretty much since you started. So, you know.
Oh, thanks, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
We're a fan of you.
We love Nate. All right. Well, hey, Nate, thanks again, man. It's been a pleasure. It's been a lot of fun hanging out and shooting a breeze with you. This was really cool. And keep us updated when you get a hard date for the release. Let us know. We'll push it. And anytime you want to come back on, let us know. So everybody who's watching, check the description. We'll put all the links for Extermination Day in there. Make sure you jump on their Bandcamp page, check it all out, and we will see you guys all on the next episode of For the Sake of Heaviness.
All right. Take care, guys.
Thanks a lot, Nate. It was a good time, man. We'll see you later.
Thank you so much.
Later, man.
Neighborhood, watch your step, what you can. It's best to keep a gun.